inspired you to bring back the tag mechanic in the Tekken games as opposed to working on, say, Tekken 7?
Back in the day when we did 3, it sold a whole lot. And we were just starting on Tekken 4, not the 4 everyone knows, but the predecessor. When our executives came and said, we need another Tekken right away. So I thought about the original tag concept in 5 minutes. But to create a tag title is just so resource intensive because you need twice the memory to be able to have all the characters in memory. Plus we wanted to have 4 characters on screen at once, so the graphical engine, we had to get twice the amount of performance out of it. So it really took Tekken 4, 5, and 6 before we were able to do that. Then we had enough new gameplay elements and features that we were able to revisit the series.
With the recent DLC announcement, what made you decide to bring back old characters such as Alex or, Michelle, Chang, and Angel?
Actually, Alex isn't one of the DLC characters. The characters we've announced for DLC are actually, we have Kunimitsu, we have Michelle, and we have Angel and Ancient Ogre as downloadable characters. Michelle, P-Jack, and some of the other characters we've also recently announced are going to be available from the start. Oh. And this was done just because when we announced that it was a tag sequel, obviously all the fans were reacting that they wanted to see this or that character appear again. So it was really just, these were some of the characters that people asked for the most.
How did Snoop Dogg become part of the project?
The Tekken team has always tried to implement different genres of music throughout the series. But one thing that we've never done was hip-hop or rap. And this time was kind of a collaboration between our marketing team and the development team. We wanted to take this fighting game, Tekken, that was created by Eastern developers and kind of pair it with this Western music. At first we didn't really, we weren't focused on Snoop yet, we just knew that we wanted to use hip-hop. When we approached our marketing folks, they said, that's kind of a good idea. And we've heard that Snoop Dogg is actually quite a fan of Tekken. So we decided that if possible we wanted him to write an original song for Tekken, which he did, and that we would also create a stage specific to him where he's in the stage as well.
If you could make any other game, what would it be, and would it still be within the fighting game genre?
Well, as a player myself, obviously I enjoy fighting games, but also various other genres such as puzzle games, driving games, RPGs even. If I made a game that wasn't a fighting game, it would still be a versus game, whereas you're not playing against the CPU opponent, but a human one.
You've been in the industry, for 10 years now. How did you, start off getting into the games industry in Japan, and how different was it back in that era?
The reason why I really got into gaming, and I've been in the games industry for about 17 years now, but the start of it was really when I was young. My parents were very strict and wouldn't allow me to play games much. It was all about studying or sports or that kind of thing. And even in university, I went to one of the top 5 universities in Japan. My grades were in the top 5 percentile or so. So I listened to what they said up until then, but I thought once I get a job in a company, I want to do what I would like, and that was gaming. I've never been able to do that freely, so I thought that at that time, and I thought if I joined a game company, I could play games all day long. So that wasn't the case, but it was back in the day when the PlayStation had just began to come out, and everyone was just starting to develop polygon-based games in a variety of different genres, very ambitious with all their different titles. The games were quite cheap and developed with a small number of people. You could develop a Tekken for a couple million pretty much back then. Where now, the current generation, it takes over 10 million just for one Tekken. And that's pretty typical now of some of the high-end titles, I think. But the thing that's kind of unusual is that you have that on one spectrum of the scale, but then you also have some of these mobile titles and titles developed for mobile platforms that are kind of like the Famicom days or the NES days, where you have a very small team with a small budget creating very ambitious titles for these mobile platforms.
A lot of players are curious about how do you go about testing character balance in the game?
昔から、アーケードの
Well, we take several approaches. There's in the early days we would collect data regarding use rates and win loss percentages and such from the actual data boards from the arcade. Now we can do that over the network, obviously. There's also a professional team of game balancers that we have that specifically do that. And there's also more subjective data about what people are saying on the forums, their opinions of the strengths or weaknesses of certain characters. Sometimes we also take data from marketing research companies that sometimes get the data from the players as well as directly through social media. So these are kind of the three pillars we use when balancing a game, and we make sure that we analyze it thoroughly and make sure that our conclusion makes sense when we're balancing the characters.